If we carry on playing the way we played on Sunday, we definitely won't be title contenders. Welcome back to the Arsenal Humans podcast with me, Luce. I hope you're all good. The Premier League is back. We've got transfer chat and we also have the women's side pre-season to talk about. So we've got a lot, as always, to talk about. I feel like even the last, month, when there haven't been any official reported games, if that makes sense. So we've obviously had a lot of friendlies and stuff and whatever. We've still had a lot to chat about. And now that games are officially back, the WSL starts in a couple of weeks. I feel like these episodes are just going to be manic. So I'm super excited to have a lot to talk about. And obviously, I'm happy with how the Premier League has started. Before we get into all of that and all the games and everything, I firstly want to get into the warm-up poll. If you're new here, which I'm actually really shocked, I'm actually still shocked that in the last 2 weeks, there's been quite a few new subscribers for me over on YouTube, about 200, 300 to be exact, which I'm just shocked about. But if you are new, you wouldn't have been here last season when I started in November and was doing the structure for when games were actually happening. So let me just quickly break it down to you so we're all on the same page, basically. What happens is I start the episode with a warm-up poll. So I put a poll out on Instagram, a question. My Instagram is luce.case if you want to go and check that out so you can be involved in future episodes. I basically go for a poll based on something throughout the week. I just ask a question, get your feedback, a little bit of interaction with you lot. Obviously, you can still comment down below, it's not limited just to Instagram. You can still let me know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with the poll results or what I say about them. Then I go into the main section of the podcast, which will be about the matches or anything topical that's happening in the news, whether it's a new kit release, because let's be real, that happens quite a lot with Arsenal, or new player signings, but that's probably less likely as we get into the season. And the transfer window ends in a couple of weeks, so yeah, that's looking less likely. And then I end the episode with the predictions for the following week, because there's going to be a lot of matches. It is crazy because I could be talking about 4+ games in just one episode. So I'm really excited for the season, and because both the men and women are thriving in their respective competitions and respective leagues, there's a lot for me to get into. But yeah, if you are new, I really appreciate you for getting involved in this journey, and hopefully you're not too disappointed with the content I put out, because I post just me by myself, just chilling here every Tuesday, and then with another Arsenal fan every other Friday. So yeah, get involved where you can, and I appreciate the new support. I thought I'd just outline it. But before I carry on waffling, let's get into the warm-up poll, which, as I said, is how I start all of my episodes. And right, I'd like to say this is something that you guys would realise if you've watched me since I started back in November or earlier on than the last month. I'm quite a positive Arsenal fan. I like to see the positives in life in general, but I also do think I am quite realistic. I don't think I'm negative or delusional, it's not too extreme, but I do think I am quite a realistic Arsenal fan. And that is why the warm-up poll, I've gone with the question, were you impressed with Arsenal's performance on Sunday? Because it's had mixed reviews, and I think overall we all know that it wasn't the best performance that Arsenal could have put out first opening week, but we did get the 3 points. So before I say my view, let me just get into the poll results. So 29% of you said yes, you were impressed with Sunday's performance, but 71% of you said no, you weren't impressed with Sunday's performance. And I hate to start it off on slightly a negative note, start off the new season considering the score, but I'm going to have to agree with the majority once again, which if you're new here is something I tend to do every single week. I wasn't that impressed with Arsenal's performance. So the 71% of you that said no, yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. And I think there's obviously so many aspects that were so good. The result, we won 1-0, a classic 1-0 to Arsenal. We've obviously got to highlight that, and that's a really good thing. But I do think that as a whole, we weren't the better side. And I think if you're an Arsenal fan and you're disagreeing with me, you need to rewatch that game, because we weren't the better side. I think we got quite lucky. It was a defensive masterclass, don't get me wrong, because we were having to defend a lot, which says a lot about our defence, which obviously I'll get into in a bit. But yeah, As a whole, I think if we carry on playing the way we played on Sunday, we definitely won't be title contenders. So I think, yes, we got the points and that's really important, but we need to actually step it up in terms of how it flows. But it is the first game of the season, and I don't want to spoil my match analysis too much in this warm-up poll. But I do appreciate anyone that got involved with that, and obviously let me know down in the comments. As I said, the warm-up polls aren't limited just to Instagram. If you want to have your view, have it down in the comments right now. Let me know how you're feeling about Sunday's performance as a whole, but I will get into more detail in the main section, which is literally coming up in about 5 seconds. Okay, so before I get into the analysis of what actually happened on Sunday, as well as a few other things I want to chat about surrounding Arsenal, can we just talk about Sky's halftime interviews? Because I'm not the only fan. There's been so many other fans that I've seen all over my For You page, all over Instagram, all over social media as a whole the last few days since the first game on Friday. And what are the halftime chats? I don't understand. I'm definitely not the only one that thinks this. It definitely is more of like American thing that's come over. People even joking saying, oh, now we've got halftime interviews, are we going to have halftime performances as well? Which obviously, don't get me wrong, that is really extreme. But considering we're implementing this, you actually never know what they're going to try implement in the future. I just think, halftime interviews, it seemed a bit pointless. Looking at the game that I'm about to talk about, Ødegaard, which firstly was a bit of a crazy player because he is literally Arsenal's captain, went and did the halftime chat and they were just like, oh, so how are you feeling? What do you mean, how's he feeling? He's feeling like he's still got 45 minutes of the game left to play. So his mind should be there. He should be with the coach. He should be with his team, recuperating, thinking, okay, we were actually defending a lot. How do we think of attacking? But instead, he was being spoken to with the media, which, don't get me wrong, I work in sports media. Obviously I do this as well, which is media related, so I do think there are so many important aspects and so many reasons why we need the media, because it gives that awareness and it just elevates the game so much more by having the media involved. But I don't think that having a 5-minute chat at half time is doing anything for the game. It's getting people talking. That's one thing. I'm talking about it right now. You're talking about it on whatever platform, or you're talking about it to your friends, or whatever you're doing. Like, everyone's thinking about it and talking about it. So it is putting awareness out there. But I think it's not for the reasons they want it to be. It's more for people thinking, why is it happening? So anyways, before this becomes a ranty episode, I just wanted to say that I don't understand it. And I do feel like by Christmas, hopefully they rethink that and they get rid of it. I don't really know if they could do it now because obviously it's been 1 week. I do think it was a little bit irrelevant, especially having someone who is so pivotal for Arsenal like Ødegaard, obviously our captain. He needs to be in that changing room talking to the boys, telling them how we can go out and actually be more attacking in the second half. So I don't know, just seemed a bit weird, and I don't really know what they expect them to say, as if they expect them to be like, oh yeah, like now we think we're probably just gonna throw the game away, or oh yeah, like I don't know, it seemed a bit weird. Let me know if I'm being a bit extreme with this and you think it's actually got more pros to it than I'm expressing. But yeah, I don't really know. Anyways, let's just breathe in and breathe out, and let's move on and focus on the actual game. It was Man United 0, Arsenal 1, which on paper, I paused there because I was like, on paper, that sounds so good, and I don't know why I'm about to complain. But I do think that there were lots of positives to take from this game, despite the actual performance itself not being the best. But I do think that us getting the 3 points is so, so important, because we saw even teams like Sunderland win 3-0 against West Ham. This league is split wide open. I reckon there's about 5-6 teams that could push for those top three, even for the title spot. But there's also about 5-6 teams that could get relegated this season already, we can see. So I think it is just really important that we got those 3 points. Whether we deserved it or not is another debate. Also, how I'm going to do this, if you watched me last season, I sort of would just chat about the games. I think I want to have a little bit more structure this season because, like I said in my intro, there's potentially going to be 4+ games that I'm going to talk about each week, because sometimes the men play at least 2 games of the Champions League, and the same for the women in 1 week. So it's kind of a lot to talk about. So I don't want to be yapping for ages and ages. So I'm basically going to try and pick out 3 things I want to talk about, good or bad, that we learnt from the game. So I've got my 3 things. It was quite hard because I feel like you've probably seen out there so many different opinions, so many different things we've learned. I picked out the 3 things that stand out to me. Obviously, there's so many other things I could talk about, but 3 things that I want to talk about. Number 1, we had such a good defensive masterclass. I mean, you can look at this in multiple ways. This could be seen as a really good thing because, I mean, not only did we have a solid back duo, which everyone is claiming to be the best in the league. And to be fair, I do think that Gabriel and Saliba are the best centre-back duo in the league. I don't really think I could think of any that would actually beat them. So yes, it highlighted how good they were. Also, Raya, he was tested so many times and he pulled off 7 saves, which is, I found out, actually the most saves that any keeper has had to do in the opening game of the Premier League, which just highlights how important he is. He needs to win all these trophies that he's getting nominated for. I mean, I mentioned it if you go back a couple episodes ago. I mentioned that Raya was nominated for one of the trophies at the Ballon d'Or ceremony, yeah, that's the right wording, like Ballon d'Or award ceremony, and he definitely should be getting that because he just proved that he is world class. I mean, there were certain shots that happened that if we had a different keeper, if he wasn't there, if he wasn't as reactive as he is, we would have lost this game, and I would be saying 3 very negative points. So Raya saved us so many times that game. So hats off to our defence as a whole, not just the back line, but also the player in the net, which is David Raya. However, I do think that if we spin this learning that I've taken from this game, it does show that we actually need to work on maybe our attacking side of the team. I don't know how to word it. It did show that defensively we showed up, but why were we being tested so many times? I mean, you had Cunha coming in, then you had Mbeumo, and these are 2 new signings for United. The way they were performing, it made Gyökeres look like, oh, he's a new player, why is he not performing like that? Like, the expectation they had, even with Sesko slotting in there, you can tell that United do have a good chance of coming in the top 8. When I first thought we were playing them, I was like, no, this will be an easy win. This will be a good way for us to get into the flow, but we just didn't really get into the flow. So I do think, yes, defensive masterclass, it shows we can rely on our players at the back, but whether we should or whether we actually want to moving forwards against teams that maybe attacking wise will be able to break us down easily, I don't think that's what we want. So that was my first taking from the game, that we had a defensive masterclass. My second taking is that Corner FC is back. You can't deny it. It was obvious because that is where the only goal from the game came from. It came from Rice swinging in the ball. United's keeper, I'm going to be real, had a bit of a mare. They tapped it. It went over Calafiori, bam, headed it in the net, and perfect. He was in the perfect place, the right time. I think, obviously, we've got to thank our set-piece coach, who gets a lot of praise, and rightfully so, because it shows how we are so dominant in the set-piece world, because we had about 5 players on the edge of the penalty box. Rice's ball got swung in, and then Calafiori was able to get through. I do think maybe it's actually funny because this corner was exactly replicated down the other end, and David Raya, obviously Arsenal's keeper, punched it out. I do think if they had Raya in the box, we wouldn't have been able to score, but luckily their keeper's not as good as ours, so then we were able to find the net, and that's not taking it away from them, because I think how programmed we are to do that, it's good that we can rely on that. I think for other teams, they need to make sure that they don't give us any corners or anything like that, because we are very good when it comes to those, not only attacking, but obviously, like I said, we're good at defending them as well. So I'm really proud of the boys for that. I'm very impressed that we've managed to keep it up, even with new teams, even playing against new players, with new players. It's really good to see that dominance. And if it's the way we're going to win these games, then I'm happy, because we need to get those 3 points, because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Also, super random, just want to touch on Rice, because obviously I mentioned him assisting that goal, obviously technically by crossing it in. He was actually named by Tony Adams. He came out and said that he thinks that Rice should be captain. I just wanted to briefly address this because I realise I haven't actually addressed it yet, because this is the first episode I've done since he made that statement. I think Ødegaard proved himself to be a great captain yesterday. He is so dominant. He doesn't have to be as vocal. I think everyone respects him. And this is just from an external. I'm not in that change room. I don't know what happens. But from what all the other players say, Rice has praised Ødegaard so many times over the years that I think it would be stupid for Rice to suddenly take his place, if that makes sense. Don't get me wrong, I see Rice, and I've mentioned it many times before. If you go back and look at other episodes, I've mentioned it many times that I do think Rice in the future will be a great Arsenal captain. but it's not his time just yet. And I think we've got to trust the timing with it, and putting those doubts out to the world is not the best thing to do. So I'm pretty annoyed that Tony Adams did that. But anyways, moving away from Tony Adams, focusing back onto the 3 things I learnt from that game. Obviously, I've mentioned the defensive masterclass. I've mentioned that Corner FC is back. And the final thing I want to talk about, which might seem pretty obvious, but I think it's probably actually the biggest takeaway that I took from that game, is we can still win without being the better side. And I think that is weirdly the most important thing, because last season I felt like there were so many times where we were so good. We had so many individual successes, whether that was Saka running down the wing or Rice in the midfield. Like, we had so many great performances, like Raya in the net, but none of them were resulting in goals. None of them were resulting in wins, and that eventually cost us, obviously, the league towards the end, because we became a bit complacent. Even when I felt like we were the better sides, we weren't getting those results. So it was actually quite promising that we're going into the season. First game, we're actually showing that, yeah, we might not be the better side, and you're lying to yourself if you think that Arsenal were the better side, but we still managed to get the points, which in a way makes us overall a bigger club and shows that we are competing more than, say, United are. Because if I'm a United fan, I'm sat at home crying right now, because how did you let Arsenal win when you had how many shots on target, you had how many chances to score, and you still managed to lose? So I think, if anything, it says more about United and how, yes, they look promising. Yes, I said they'll come probably in the top 8 now, but they're not title contenders because they don't have that winning mentality. And I feel like it's something we've seen from City in recent years, that even when I think, oh, they're not having their best game, I'm like, yeah, but they always find a way to win. Comparing it to the women's side as well, I feel like Chelsea always have a way to win. Towards the last, like, maybe 3 months of the season in the WSL last year, Chelsea would be drawing or even 1 goal down, and then somehow they'd find a way to win, and they only got, 2-3 draws that whole season. So I think those teams do better because they always find a way to win, and I'm hoping this isn't a one-off. I'm hoping we do find ways to win. Obviously, I'd love to win by having better performances, because I know we can have better performances, but I think it's just so important that we manage to get those 3 points. And don't get me wrong, I know there were so many uncomfy positions and situations in that game. Obviously, I've mentioned before, you had Mbermo, you had Cunha attacking, and Gyökeres then was leaving the ball behind him, which sadly was a clip that's been sort of put out online everywhere. But we know that Gyökeres is good. We just know that he needs to blend into the team more. I know he's obviously scored before for us in the Emirates Cup, which I mentioned in my last episode. I think it's just giving him time, and I don't know how much time we can give him. I don't want it to become one of these players again where we're like, no, he will show up. But I think everyone's put so much pressure on him, and yeah, give it a bit of time. We'll see. Obviously, if I'm still saying in a few weeks' time Gyökeres still hasn't blended in, then we're going to have issues, and then we're going to have to be looking for other strikers and other attacking players. But I do think that we're gonna be all right, and the most important thing is that we got those 3 points on Sunday. Whether we deserve them or not, that's another debate. And I don't want to come across as too negative with this, actually. I feel like I'm trying to be realistic. I've picked out 3 things which are actually really good. We had a good defence. We had a good set-piece performance, as always. And we proved that we can win even without being the better team on paper. So I think there's a lot of positives to take from that game. Obviously, things to work on, don't get me wrong. But there were positives. I do think that maybe moving forward, things might be made slightly easier if we had the addition of 1 player, which brings me on to my next topic of the transfer news. And there's not really much to bring you, to be fair, apart from the idea of Eze, who, sadly, I hate to say it, might actually be going to Spurs, which it does frustrate me, because, like I was about to say, if we had the likes of that 1 additional player, Eze, out on the wing, I think we could provide more support. That's maybe one reason why Gyökeres wasn't able to score or find the back of the net, because he didn't really have the options. And I think how the team works, he's very direct, but he wasn't really being given the service. And for whatever reason, we didn't really flow, we didn't really click. It is the first game of the season, though. We do need to give everyone a bit of a break. We're going to flow, we're going to connect. It's literally week 1. Obviously, if we're still having these issues at Christmas, that's annoying. But hopefully it doesn't get to that point, because we do get that additional player. Sadly, I don't think it's going to be an Eze, because it is looking pretty likely that he will be moving to Spurs, which is annoying. But to be fair, I don't think we really need any other players. I think the only issue that we had on Sunday was people hadn't gelled. Not having I think maybe that one space on the left would be great to have more backup and more cover. But apart from that, I don't think we actually really we don't really need any more players. So I feel like the transfer window, it's fair, like it's quieter now. We've got 2 weeks left, so anything could happen. Obviously in that time I'll be able to do 2 more episodes. So hopefully something has happened that helps us, but I don't think it's too necessary. In terms of the women's side, we haven't made any more signings, but it's a similar sort of approach where I think maybe we need a midfielder. I feel like that's a constant issue. We've got Kim Little, who, one of my favourite players. She's solid. She is a player, honestly, I'm in complete awe of what she's done. She's become an Arsenal legend, but she is now getting older and we're getting rid of other players, and it's almost like, who are we going to bring in? So I think, in terms of that midfield, maybe, especially if Beth Mead is linked to other clubs, which it's looking likely that's not going to happen, but you never know who's going to leave. So I think, we haven't actually got any new signings for Arsenal since I last did my podcast. We've had about 5 already this window, and I feel like those were in the spaces we needed. If anything, just one midfielder. So sort of same for the men's and women's sides. We don't actually need any new signings, but maybe just to strengthen the men's side, it'd be great to have like a winger, like preferably on the left side, and then for the women's side, preferably maybe another midfielder, just to add some more squad depth. But apart from that, transfer window, it's all right. We did actually say bye to Wienroither, who has left Arsenal. I think since her injury, when she did her ACL a few seasons back, it was actually really traumatic how she did it. And when she did it, because she did it in the semi-final of the Champions League, I saw it. I was there at Arsenal in the press box, and that was really upsetting to see her walk off the pitch. Since then, I feel like it's the same with any injuries in any footballer or any athlete in general, any sport. They're never completely the same, and I feel like, it's sad to see her go. I think maybe we could have played her more, but it just didn't fit in with our system. So I hope she does well, whatever she does next. We've also said bye to Kafaji, but on loan, so not forever. It's not a permanent move. I actually spoke about Kafaji on the Arsenal Humans Fan Zone, the first episode, which came out a couple Fridays ago, with Jamie, because he's a huge fan of her. So straight away, as soon as I found out, I had to message him. And we were just a bit gutted to see her go, but I feel like this would be good for her to get more game time, get more minutes, and then when she returns to Arsenal, hopefully she'll have more game time there with Arsenal. So we'll see what happens. But apart from that, I feel like there's not too much transfer news to chat about. The last thing I want to talk about in this main section, the last topic, is Arsenal Women's pre-season tour. So the Gunners have been based in Adidas's headquarters in Germany, which I think is pretty cool. And apparently, obviously they've had a couple of games. They had a game behind closed doors, and this is just what I've read, so I'm not 100% sure how true it is, but apparently they've there was a photo from the game that kind of got leaked, and in the background you could see that they won 3-0 against Frankfurt, which obviously Amanda Ilestedt is a player that left a few weeks ago, and she now plays for Frankfurt, so obviously coming up against former club, which is really hard for obviously the players, but it's football at the end of the day. It's their job, they have to win, and it's good to see a 3-0 under our belt to show that we can compete in Europe as well, which is something that obviously we won the Champions League last season, but it's always promising and hopeful to have that as well. So it's just really good to see that Arsenal are doing well. Obviously it's just pre-season, like I said a few episodes ago with the warm-up poll, that pre-season results don't matter, it's more how you perform, because those performances are going to carry you throughout the season. But it is just good to see that Arsenal are doing well either way. So hope that we're having a great time out there. I mean, we've got another 2 weeks, just over 2 weeks until the WSL starts again, so I'm actually very, very excited. I'm obviously very excited. I feel like I talk about this every week, how excited I am for the WSL season to start, so I'll be bringing you more news on the women's side from then onwards, or any other topics that pretty much come up. But I think that's the end of the main section. We spoke a bit about the game, we spoke about the transfer news, spoke about the women's side's pre-season, and now let's get into the predictions, because we've got one game coming up and it's in the Premier League. I can't believe that we're actually already at the end of the episode where we get to talk about the predictions. I feel like this episode's gone kind of quick, trying to fit everything in, and I hope you've enjoyed it so far. But just moving on to the Premier League, because that's the only competition that is up and running. We have one game to look ahead to, which is Arsenal versus Leeds. It's happening on Saturday, the 23rd of August at 5:30, and it's obviously at the Emirates because it's a home game for Arsenal. Straight off the bat, I'm going to predict that it's going to be a 2-0 win. I was going to say about 3 or 4-0 because obviously Leeds have recently been promoted and there seems to be that trend where the promoted clubs go straight back down. But that's not really the theme we've seen from this opening weekend because Leeds actually won 1-0 to Everton last night, which was Monday night. And then obviously I mentioned like Sunderland won 3-0 to West Ham. I feel like there's a few surprise results, so I don't want to go overly confident. But I think with Raya in the net against Leeds, if he can keep a clean sheet against the likes of Cunha and Mbeumo against United, I think he can do a good job, against Leeds. So I'm hoping it'll be a clean sheet. And I think it's more just down to our attacking players because I think defensively we're going to be great, as we were on Sunday. But it's more down to whether our attacking players, Gyökeres slots in. Maybe because obviously if you look when he played United against his former boss, Amorim, so maybe Amorim sort of knew his style, knew how to shut down those players and everything. But I think this game, hopefully Gyökeres, I'm hoping anyways, he's already scored at the Emirates in the Emirates Cup. I'm hoping he comes out of his shell and properly is direct with his play, which is obviously what we know is his forte through looking at highlight reels from when he was in the Portuguese league. But yeah, I am hoping it's going to be a 2-0 win. I think if we obviously lose this game or drop any points to Leeds, then what are we doing? Like, that just shouldn't happen. But without obviously taking too much away from Leeds, because as I said, they've already won one game. We're actually level on points and level on goal difference and everything because we both won 1-0 in our opening game this season. So it looks even on paper, but it is Arsenal versus Leeds. I'm hoping it will be 2-0. Obviously, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Let me know down in the comments what you think, whether you think Arsenal will be able to win or not, or what you think the score line will be actually, because I think Arsenal should be able to win. I'll be crying in the next podcast if we don't, basically. But yeah, I just thought I'd keep the prediction quite short and brief. But anyways, that was the end of this episode. Thank you for watching. I'll be back on Tuesday, just me. But if you can't wait that long, I do have the second episode of the Arsenal Humans Fan Zone up on Friday. Super excited for you to hear from that guest because I've had it edited and ready for a while now. So I'm super excited to get it out there. But yeah, anyways, have a good week.